Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah, and guess what? I just took a nap, and I read about an article about nap this morning, and it was so funny because it was talking about getting over the guilt of sleep, which I think is absolutely ridiculous because sleep does so many amazing things for your brain, your body, and your soul, I think. So I think you're going to enjoy this guest. If you have a tricky relationship with sleep or you have a child or a teen who you feel doesn't get enough sleep, I know you're going to love our conversation with Funke Athalabi Brown. Dr. Brown, how are you?
Good, good, good. I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm so proud of you. You got a nap in and you got it in early. So that is perfect. You are good to go.
Uh,
Thanks
well,
for
I
having
am.
me.
Thank you. And I work a lot of odd hours and face a lot of really important subjects. So I take it, upon my own personal integrity to have a fresh, clear mind, no matter what time of the day it is that I'm meeting someone or they're asking questions. So what do you know about sleep that most people don't?
Well, I would say sleep is not just a cure for sleepiness.
Mm.
Um, Sleep has so many different functions that most people are not aware of. One is that it cleanses your brain actually, because over the course of the day, from when you wake up, the surface of your brain actually starts to accumulate deposits, some proteins, they call it beta amyloid. And so what that has been shown to be associated with over time, if your brain is not cleansing it appropriately, is cognitive problems like Alzheimer's and dementia and things like that. So think of it like your brain's own special cleansing system. Our bodies have what you call the lymphatic system, which kind of helps to get rid of toxic products. And our brain also has a similar system called the glymphatic system. So plumbing is going on with sleep as well, not just the fact that it helps you to feel less sleepy. It's actually a physiologic need. And I think it's a good place to start in terms of the benefits and the usefulness of sleep.
So let's talk about our kids and sleep. I know you do a lot of specialty work with both sleep and children. Do you want to tell people a bit about that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm the for sleep. I am passionate in busy professional moms and their children to prioritize sleep as a critical aspect of their health and wellness so that you can thrive and reach your fullest potential. And so some of the work I do is, first of all, empowering people with information about what sleep is, the importance of sleep, and how they can get good sleep. Because I feel that for you to have that transformation you desire, you need information. And so I think that's a starting point. Because sometimes, I mean, growing up for me personally, sleep was part of a punishment sometimes, actually. That's all I knew. If I was in trouble, I get sent to my room. And over time, we just know we slept, but we really didn't understand what the benefits are. And I've been on a mission to help people understand that.
A mission I share a passion with, as you can obviously tell. And I never feel bad about going to sleep early or getting sleep. I just feel like it's like my own superpower as I go through the rest of life. And it's fascinating to me
Mm.
how many people say they're tired but don't sleep. It's such an easy, free correlation, but we say we're tired and drink coffee, or we say we're tired and watch TV, or we say we're tired
Mm.
and scroll through the internet. Can you tell people what happens when we have a sleep deficit?
Absolutely. So it's a lot of things. From the very, and studies have shown this, even one day of not getting sufficient sleep is associated with increased risk of anxiety. And that over time, then of course, has a lot of consequences. So insufficient sleep has a huge impact on our mood, anxiety and depression, and things like that has been associated with insufficient sleep. The other is cognitive function. In
Mhm.
children, in adults, the ability to make really critical decisions is linked to good sleep. So when you're not getting good sleep, it's imagine walking in a fog constantly. And so that really impacts the kind of the quality of decisions you make. And for our children who are actively learning, right, we really need them to be able to retain, to remember, to be creative. All that is something that we get when we sleep well. So if we don't get enough sleep, you're really missing those benefits. And there've been, I mean, most if you think about teenagers and also for us as adults as well, when you have some major deadlines, um, for example, or a child has a test, the first thing they go to is, okay, listen, I'm going to just pull an all-nighter. I'm going to drink
Mhm.
coffee all night so I could study and all that. But learning and the ability to actually remember what you learn actually occurs when you get enough sleep. And they've done studies where they've looked at children before a test who had good sleep compared to those who didn't. And those who had good sleep, no matter what content it was, were able to retain, recall, and do better on those tests. And then
Mm.
even in our physical bodies as well. So one of the things that happen during sleep is we get hormonal regulation. So things like insulin, some other hormones that help our metabolism, like there's one called leptin, which is your satiety hormone that lets you know you're full, and ghrelin, which is kind of like the hunger hormone. During sleep, it gets regulated. And so when you don't sleep well, there's a higher likelihood that you'll make poorer food choices, which can then, of course, cause obesity, increase insulin resistance, and so many other health consequences. So for me, what I say is sleep helps us to be happy, right, with the mood, to be healthy with our physical health overall, and to be more successful to make those critical decisions that sometimes life depends on.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking about when you're talking about life depending on it. I was thinking about a teen needing to make a critical decision behind the wheel,
Yeah.
and they've stayed up, and they've not slept, worked too long, or studied too long, and then they have to make a decision about driving very early on in their driving career. It seems like a train wreck, right?
It is, and that's a huge one. So one of the top one of the most common causes of death in teens, unfortunately, is accidental injuries. So through car accidents and drowsy driving and things like that. And I feel like for teens and also even for some adults, the odds are almost are stacked against them, right?
Mhm.
They end up with so much work, so much they're doing in school, right? Their circadian rhythm or their internal clock is shifted, so they naturally don't even feel sleepy till late. And on top of that, they have social media. They have all this pressure that either they put on themselves or society puts on them, creating anxiety. And so that just delays their sleep even further. And so a teen that's supposed to get 8 to 10 hours of sleep is not going into bed until like 12 midnight. But guess what? In most school districts, they have the early school start times. So they start school at 7, 7:30. And guess who needs to get up at 6 a.m.? Now they're only on 6 hours of sleep. And if you think about the sleep they're getting and the time they're being woken up to get up and get to school, it's what you call the period of their circadian nadir, meaning that's their sleepiest time of the night. And during that time is when they're actually getting into that REM sleep, which really helps them with their mood and memory and things like that. And so for us to be waking our teens so early in the morning, it's like for adults being told to wake up at like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m.
Mhm.
to solve, I don't know, trigonometry or something. So we're asking them to perform at their less optimal time. And then we're putting them behind the wheel. During those times, your reflexes are slowed, your cognition is impaired, and so the decision, the ability to have that very fast reaction time, and they've done this in studies where they had simulations of people driving, sleep deprived versus those who had enough sleep. Then you're less likely to hit the brakes, right? If you see that car just pop out of the into your view. And so really this is something where they're really then being set up for for injuries and things like that. So it's a big issue. It's a really big issue.
Well, let's I know another issue is blue lights and screen time
Hmm.
and social media and phones. What do you feel like if there's a parent and they have a teen and their teen wants to be on the phone all through the night or computer or TV, what effect is that having on people's sleep?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you may have heard of the blue light, right? So it's a blue wavelength light, right? And so different devices, so the phones, the laptops, the video games, the iPads, the TVs, many of which may be in our teens' rooms, essentially what emit that blue light. And what that blue light looks like, it mimics daylight, right?
Hmm.
There's a sleep hormone that our brain produces, a part of our brain called the pineal gland releases melatonin. And melatonin, we say, is the hormone of darkness, meaning that it follows our circadian clocks or our internal clocks, and it's released at night when it's dark outside or dark inside until melatonin production starts. When you have blue light, then it tricks the brain and sends signals to the brain to think it's still daytime. And so that melatonin production is slowed. And so that's a big piece of what also contributing to why our teens are not able to get enough sleep. But then on the flip side, I hear some arguments from our dear team saying, well, I have the blue light filter, or I use the blue light blocking glasses. Come on, doc. Let me go with this.
Hmm.
While that may be helpful, the other piece is just the arousal that these devices create, right? So you're getting that text just before you fall asleep, and or that group chat or that social media post. It creates this sense of stress. It creates the stress response, either positive or negative, which then makes it hard for our brains or our teens' brains to slow down. So you may be have gotten past the blue light, but those notifications, those texts are not necessarily conducive for good sleep.
Well, with adults too, when you think about,
Yeah.
okay, I'm falling asleep to the news or
Mm,
falling asleep to some psychological thriller or crime
mm,
show, or
yeah.
that sends a chemical response in our body as well. Even though it's
Yeah.
on television, it's not in our real life, but
Yeah.
our body is still experiencing stress from that, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So this affects even little kids, and it's a lot. So I just recommend don't watch a horror movie at night before you go to bed. Like it does end up really impacting the quality of sleep you get.
Hmm.
And also, if you do have notifications, to make sure they're silenced, right? Because
Hmm.
the text or things, there's so many options now. And so you can opt out of notifications or put on a do not disturb at night, or better yet, maybe leave the phone out of the room. I
Hmm.
talk about the phone a lot because it's handy, it's right there. Um, and so that's something that I think you can do to just curb that.
Hmm. So I correct me if I'm wrong. The way I understood sleep, and if you sleep with the television, there's a lot. My husband, he's terrible about falling asleep to the television, and I'm like, well, then your brain doesn't have any time that it's not collecting data, because if you're
Mm,
asleep but the television is still on, there's still those sounds, there's still those music. So his brain, when he's asleep, is still collecting data, so there's not a
absolutely.
white space. Am I wrong in that? I need to
No,
argue
you
about
are.
this over at dinner tonight.
I love it. Yes, you're so right. You're so right. So even though your eyes may be shut, and I have people that
Mhm,
say, well, I need to hear something before going to bed. I'm not necessarily engaging with the content. I just need it to be on in the background. If you notice, especially on TV, there are different intensities of the light. And so
mhm,
our brain is still picking those up, even though our eyes are shut. And of course, also, the noise or the TV, the different frequencies to the sound as well. And so some people will even turn the TV down, but they just want that light to be on. And so that also impacts our melatonin regulation and production. And so then it really prevents us from getting or disrupts us from getting the deep sleep. So ideal would be to have that off as well, because yes, you're right, your brain is still processing. Your brain doesn't care whether it's daylight or it just sees light, and it's trying to relate or connect it to something, and that really prevents you from being able to sleep restfully.
mhm. Well, and to keep us safe too, if there's intruder that comes in the house, we want our brains to wake us up. And if there's an
Mm,
intruder on a TV show, we don't want to be woken up, but it's tricky.
yeah.
Let's talk about how to get better sleep. If someone is either has a child or themselves that they just think, okay, 8 to 10 hours for a teen, what? Or 8 hours for me, what? How do you help, or how do you recommend people begin to get better sleep?
So I think the important thing is really knowing where you are, and it's
Hmm.
okay. It first comes with acknowledging and understanding why sleep is important. So you understand now that yes, I do need sleep for my brain, for growth, for performance, for health. How do I get it? Find where you are. So if you're someone who's been, hanging out in the 5 to 6 hour range all this while, but really we want to get you to 7 to 9, say for adults, and then 8 to 10 for teens, is then making that mind shift and making that decision. I'm going to prioritize sleep. Because when we do make that decision, first we start to then create boundaries. And so that's when you can say, okay, you know what, the day is done and we're going to pick this up tomorrow. You have to, I say, make it like you're making an appointment with sleep. If you had a very important appointment with someone, you probably would make time for them. So make sleep, make an appointment with sleep, and so be able to create those boundaries. Now, it does, especially if your body's been sort of almost used to sleeping really short hours of sleep. I would say start to increase it gradually. It's no judgment. You don't need to feel guilty. Now now you're empowered to make the right decision. So if you're sleeping only 6 hours and you are going to bed, say at midnight, for instance, maybe just shift it by 15 to 30 minutes. And then every few days, you start to move closer. So, for adults, again, it's 7 to 9. Some people need 9 hours to sleep. Some people are okay around those 7 hours. So finding out what your goal is, setting that goal, and then slowly extending your sleep. If you suddenly decide I'm going to go to bed you've been going to bed at 1 a.m. or 12 noon, and you're like, listen, I'm going to bed at 9:30, and just going to be there awake, frustrated, because
Yeah.
your internal clock needs to sort of reset. And so you do that by gradually extending your sleep.
Now, I've heard this is obviously a subject I'm passionate about, as you can see, but I've heard that some people may need uh, like a break between like their life and their day, and then there's like some type of process or procedure, and then they go to sleep. Have you ever seen that help
Yes,
people or?
yes.
Hmm.
And that's what your wind down routine is.
Hmm.
Every person, child, adult, not just, so I'm sure you may remember, like, if you have kids or something, you're trying to set the schedule. They take a bath, they get into their jammies, we sing a song, we read a book, and then all that good stuff. Our brains make associations, and when you're doing, the brain already starting to connect. Oh, okay, we're switching from playtime or daytime to sleep time. The same way as adults, we need that. We need that time to sort of unplug from the day. And so, what I really recommend is 2 to 3 calming activities that are heading in the direction of the bedroom. So it's not the time to do some crazy, cardio exercise. You need something that kind of helps you unplug. So whether it's taking a bath or reading a book or doing some meditation or something that then kind of helps to cue your brain to say, okay, let's detach from all the stress of the day and start to prepare for bedtime. I think it's really, everybody should have a routine. I think it's really helpful. It helps to improve your sleep quality. It helps you to fall asleep better.
Well, as my they've gotten way older as far as like a bedtime routine, but
Yeah.
because I still walk them through their bedtime routine, I've kind of fallen with that still. And so
Mm,
it's kind of as we go through that process of brush your teeth, do this, I brush my teeth at the same time, that type of thing. Or, will you lay with me for a few minutes? We talk through their day, and half the time I'm asleep. But it's been that process for so long of like my body's conditioning of, well, the day is done,
yeah.
and it's been Wonderful. There's some times I've gone, it's for the listeners are like, because it's really funny because people in my life, they're like, how do you get so much done? But it's,
Hmm.
man, when you like actually get sleep. I mean, there's times I go
Yeah.
to sleep at 8:30 and I may get up at 5, and I like that
Yeah.
internal clock. They call it,
Mm.
they say I'm a sleep lion. Have you heard that phrase?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do my best work very
Mm.
early and schedule my life within that rhythm. Because if I had
Yeah.
to do some, when I'm working at 8 at night, they always
Mm.
know I've taken a nap because I
Mm.
know I have to prep for for
Yeah.
that meeting that night, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Um, but I just feel like it's like a magic bullet that so many people
Mm.
are missing out on. What do you mean? Don't get Alzheimer's. I lose weight.
Yeah.
I'm in a better mood. I suffer from depression less. I have a longer rope with my kids, so I'm not
Mm.
losing my temper. I'm more creative. I can think outside the box more, and it's free. Like, what?
I love it. I know. I love it. It's so true. It's like the world's best kept secret, and it's free. And this is
Mhm.
something that, in spite of, all we hear about evolution and things, the need for sleep, if it was something that was not necessarily necessary, it would have been done away with, but it's still present, it's still needed. And one of the things I also say is, if you were doing it well, you're literally spending a third of your life sleeping.
Mhm.
You are spending a third of your life sleeping. And so, for you to really be able to maximize the two-thirds that's left, really do the one-third really well. And so, I love what you said about productivity improving, because yes, it's been shown. Because why? You're learning those skills much better when you sleep well. The
Mhm.
tasks that may take you um, an hour or 2 hours to learn when you're sleep deprived takes you shorter, and this is evidence, it takes us shorter time to learn it after a good night of sleep. And we say that to, even for our students too. You're kind of trying to read one thing, and I don't know if that has ever happened to you, you're suddenly reading the same line like 20 times.
Mhm.
You need to sleep, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden it's just better. So it's a need that affects every part of our lives.
Well, that's what happened today. I'm doing my second editing process on my next book, and I had gotten up at 5. I started very early. I know that's my like go time, so I did that, and then it was instantly like, whoa, I need a break. And when you
Hmm.
start, it's been a huge lesson in my life to slow down and not go guns something all the time. But you start to
Hmm.
realize that's a mistake that could end up in my book. So
Hmm.
I've read this line 20 times, and I went and
Yeah.
worked out and then came back and did some more work on it. And then it was just like, I don't feel like this is productive at all. I'm going to take a nap. Avoidance, right?
Yeah.
It's mistake avoidance when it's like, I'm just going to plow through and
Hmm.
push through this book. No one wants you to push through creative things, or
Hmm.
but even if it's you're reading contracts, you're doing surgery, you're doing
Hmm.
whatever it is, it can be really dangerous to
Hmm.
operate from that version of you.
Yeah, yeah, that is so, so true. That's right. And really just taking that break, it doesn't, even if it's a nap, I mean, as long as you're taking that nap earlier in the day,
Mhm.
um, I think it makes a world of difference, you
Mhm.
know. Yeah.
I love it. This is such a great conversation. Will you tell people where they can find out more about you?
Yes, absolutely. So my website is restfulsleep.com. So there, I have a blog. I also have access to, you also have access to tons of resources. Actually, I created an evidence-based acronym on how to essentially create healthy sleep habits. Because when you Google sleep hygiene, like, so much comes at you, you're like, which one's more important, which is not. So there's an acronym that I have, that both for the parents and also for the children, to really create those healthy sleep habits. We talked about a routine and so many other elements of it, which can then get you started on your journey towards healthy sleep. And then I also have a sleep course actually specifically for teens. One thing I realized is there's a lot of resources out there for infants and newborns and sleep
Yeah.
coaches and things like that. And sleep, the need for sleep doesn't end in that infant stage, right? You're talking about writing books and changing lives and making an impact. You need that sleep education. And our teens, because they're going through so much growth and changes mentally, physically, emotionally, need that as well. And so this course, it's a self-paced course that you can get for your teens, for them to actually learn about sleep, learn about the importance of sleep. So the bickering, trying to get them off their devices, they know why now. So I created that course, and it's also on my website. So if you want to learn more, it's at restfulsleep.com/courses. And I'm on
Well,
social media as well.
especially as we talked about mood and depression and
Mm,
anxiety, I'm
yeah,
sure you are aware of the issues teens are facing right now, especially since COVID with
yeah,
anxiety and depression. We were already concerned about suicide rates before COVID,
yeah,
and those social pressures. So if sleep can be a solution, again, free solution to
yeah,
help change all these areas of your life and the well-being of your child's brain.
yeah. That is so, so true. That is
Oh,
so
I love it.
important.
Love it. Restful sleep. You guys check her out. And thank you for helping us on our journey to becoming toxic person proof.